Welcome to the Veterinary Marketing Podcast, where it's all about how to attract, engage, and retain clients to your veterinary hospital using digital marketing. My name is Brandon Brashears. I hope you're having a wonderful day. In today's episode, we're going to be talking all about tracking your marketing. This is really, really important, and there's been so many changes and added difficulty based on iOS 14's privacy update. iOS 15's update is going to add even more complications. I probably should do an episode completely dedicated to iOS 14 and iOS 15 because it's really changed the game when it comes to marketing. So before we begin, I want to mention a few things. First, if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from. And if you could do me a huge favor, if you enjoyed the podcast, please be sure to leave an honest review. If there's ever anything, by the way, that you think I could improve on or that would make the show better or topics that you would like to have covered, please send me an email. It's brandon@veterinarymarketingpodcast.com. And as always, if there's anything that I can help you with, I'm always happy to help people that listen to the podcast. Just reach out. You can also head on over to the Veterinary Marketing Nerds Facebook group. It's facebook.com/the Veterinary Marketing Nerds. That's completely free and you can get help. There's tons of really smart people in there, practice owners and marketers and all kinds of people that have a great amount of experience. On top of that, I'm doing a training. It's coming up December 6th. If you would like to learn how to build a marketing funnel that delivers your perfect client into your practice, then this is the training for you. If you're wanting better quality clients, if you're wanting more high-end clients or for specific services, this is going to be a great training for you. Be sure to head on over to veterinarymarketingpodcast.com/challenge and you can sign up. It's going to be 5 days, live sessions. And at the end of this challenge, you're going to have a marketing funnel that you can use again and again. You can apply paid traffic. You can apply email traffic. You can use it for social. You can use it for organic. We're going to talk about all of that stuff in this training. I think it's going to be really good. I think you're going to love it. So if you're looking for better clients or more of a specific type of service, this is really right up your alley. So be sure to join. All right. Let's get into today's episode. Today we're talking all about marketing metrics. Now, a little bit of context here. With Facebook, they have pixels that have been really great at tracking. iOS 14, which is the Apple operating system for mobile devices, which is a huge percentage of traffic, has said, we are going to be protecting the privacy of our users, which is really funny because they collect data constantly. They might just want to sell it or something, I don't know. But they're saying, we really want to protect our clients' privacy and our customers' privacy, so we're not going to let Facebook collect data on third-party sites. The only place that Facebook can now collect data is going to be on, Facebook's app. So if you're running Facebook or Instagram or Messenger and you're doing things inside of Facebook, Instagram, or Messenger, you're going to only be able to track activities in there. Now, Facebook has come out with a bunch of different kind of responses, and it's been, in my opinion, very lackluster, which is interesting because advertising is the only way that they make money, so you'd expect there to be a lot more direction. There are things like what's called a first-party pixel, so you can install a first-party pixel, you verify your domain, and then you can track events that happen. So a pixel, by the way, is just a piece of code. So somebody comes, let's say, from an Instagram post or something, an ad on Instagram, they go to your website, they complete a form. In the past, you would have been able to track that user all the way across that journey, and you'd be able to know exactly which ad they came from. You'd be able to know what kind of demographics were working, all kinds of really cool data points. Now, after iOS 14, and by the way, Google has had a similar thing that they've said within Chrome. They said we're not going to allow third-party pixels, which means it can't be a Facebook pixel. So Facebook turned it into what's called a first-party pixel. So that means that the individual business is collecting that data on their site rather than having it collected by Facebook. So it was just a small distinction, but Facebook's been trying to kind of adjust their code and the way that they do things slightly over time so that they're trying to get around this stuff. But it's really, really kind of just hit the fan, so to speak, with this iOS 14 update. And so I would say 95% of conversions are not being tracked. Just tons and tons of data is missing. And it's interesting, too, Facebook has changed the way that they say they do the reporting. They say they're using statistical algorithms for this stuff. They're using statistical models to give you conversion data with a 7-day attribution window. What that basically means is they're like kind of saying, okay, based on the amount of traffic that you have, you should have had, this many conversions over a 7-day period, which is totally bogus in my opinion. So, and the reason why I know that is because I have clients that are spending a tremendous amount of money on ads for Facebook. And so we're using a really expensive tracking software that pulls all of the data, puts custom UTM codes on there, and does all these really fancy tricks to ultimately see exactly what's happening, which ads are converting and things. And it's missing almost everything. So we have server-side tracking set up, and what you do with that is you give Facebook all of the data from either sales or leads, and you use a tool called Zapier, and you connect Facebook with your sales CRM. A lot of people don't want to do that, and that makes sense because you're not wanting to give Facebook all of your client data. But we were desperate, so we tried it because we wanted to see if we'd be able to get conversion data. It says it makes it anonymous and things like that, right? But it just did not work to any extent that was remotely close either. So what can you do to track conversions? And by the way, Facebook is not going to be the only thing that's going to be affected by this. Apple's iOS 15 update is going to have privacy with relation to text messaging, with relation to email marketing. And by the way, I understand that like what I just said was pretty darn complicated. And so if you're not understanding like server-side API integrations and UTM codes and all of these things, we're going to go more in depth. I just wanted to kind of paint a picture that it's been really challenging for marketers to track conversions in the way that they have done in the recent past. So I think that we've generally been very, very spoiled. It's kind of been a gravy train. We've been in the Wild West of marketing, and I think everybody who does marketing for a living kind of knows that this kind of access to data and this kind of access to optimization tools, and it's just not going to be sustainable because it just seems like there's a lot of backlash. I mean, this has been really backlash since at least the 2016 election, so it's been a long time coming, but definitely it's a bummer because it's cool to have good data to work with. I mean, the power of Facebook ads have been the targeting. And conversion tracking and being able to optimize for specific conversion events. So when we're looking at all of this, and I think it's just going to continue to become more restrictive in terms of what you can target, what you can do, we have to, I think, look at tracking and break it down in ways that we would do with older marketing methods. So, people used to advertise in newspapers and yellow pages and direct mail, and they were able to track the effectiveness of their marketing. So what do we do to do that? And I think the simplest way in general is that we have individual marketing assets for different channels. So I think number one, we need to establish that you need to have Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager installed on all pages of your website so that you're getting as much data as possible. So that way you can at least understand how much traffic you're typically getting. You can see time on site, you can see clicks, you can see conversions, you can see those kinds of things. And once that is set up, I think the next level beyond that is then setting up specific pages based on your marketing objectives. So for example, if you are doing ads on Google, you should have a landing page for those ads on Google that's not accessible through a menu or other places. So really the only place that somebody could get to this page would be through your Google ads. And then I also think it's important to have tracking activities on those pages so that you're understanding what's happening once people get there. So, for example, let's say you're just doing a campaign and targeting searches for vet near me. I would create a services page because your traffic is more general, but I would create a services page that would then give you the data on what happens when people come from the Google ads. So you can compare that to your other traffic forms, and like your organic traffic and your social traffic and things like that. You're always going to be able to track through Google Analytics, in my opinion. There are a ton of ad blockers and things like that probably do mess with your analytics data, but I do think you're going to be able to track your Google Analytics, forever. I don't think that's going anywhere. It's been around for, I think, almost 20 years now, which is pretty wild. And the data inside of Google Analytics looks pretty darn good. So I think it makes sense, and it's the simplest in terms of, okay, how are these ads stacking up against other traffic forms? How many new clients are we getting? And really figuring out kind of what the KPIs that we really, really want to focus on are going to be very important. So I think really establishing the benchmarks of what is the data that is going to be really important for us to measure the effectiveness of the campaign, and then not try to overwhelm with all of the data points, because there's a lot of things that you could be looking at. So if you're doing campaigns where you're trying to generate new clients, then I think it's important that you either, number one, have an offer that's specific to that medium or channel. So, for example, if you have YouTube ads that you're running, or you're doing YouTube content, and you put an offer on there that says, we're doing a free dental exam with every visit, or like whatever you want, right? If that's the only place that offer is, you can know that this piece of content that you put on YouTube is generating that offer, then those kind of clients for you. So it really helps to narrow down where the traffic is coming from. You can also figure out what your conversion rate is, how many people watched that video, and then how many people went to the page, and then how many people took that offer, and how many people either called or filled out a web form. And that will give you some kind of indication what your conversion rate is. And then if you're spending money on your ads, if you have the ability to say, okay, we had Google ads running last week, we sent 120 people to this services page that is only accessible through Google Ads. They had 15 calls that clicked the call button, when we had 20 form fills of people submitting an appointment request. You can kind of backtrack that and figure out what it is. Now, an even better step is there's a lot of software out there that will connect your appointment booking to Google Ads, which is cool. And a lot of companies are getting better at this, which is really, really cool. But if you can connect that, you can say, okay, this campaign generated these clicks. Here is the actual client name. And so that takes more work, right? But if you're trying to really set up a benchmark for what is our average client from Google worth, and if you can get a relatively accurate number there, you can figure out in the future, and I would audit this on a pretty regular basis, but okay, if our clients that come from Google on average are worth $320 on their first visit, and it costs us $12 in Google Ads to get one of those, what is our return on investment, right? And you obviously need to figure out what your profit is and things like that. But that is going to give you a good benchmark that you can then pretty simply say, okay, these are our metrics. Here's what's happening. Here's how we can either increase the number of appointments. Here's how we can optimize these campaigns. But really, if you don't have this kind of data, you're not going to be able to make that calculation for what is the actual return on investment for my marketing. And I think that's really important, because that is the question that comes up all the time. Sometimes people will say, what is the return on investment for Google Ads in general? What's a good return on investment? And I wish I had better data. It is really difficult to get practice owners to sit down and do this. But I think if you would just sit down maybe once a year, twice a year, and really establish what is the value of the traffic from each of these sources, so that you did have that answer, and you could say, okay, over the past year, our average client is worth this much on their first visit, this much on an annual basis. Here's how we did. Here's how many new clients we got from Google. Here's what it actually turned out to be. And so that way, when you're projecting out the next year, you can set a budget that's going to be based on the goals that you have, what you're actually looking to do, and it's not just guesswork. And I know that that's a little bit tough, but I think it's just incredibly valuable from a marketing perspective, from a business planning perspective. So that is, I think, the simplest way to then figure out what your marketing is doing, per channel or per campaign. Another tool that's really, really good is what are called UTM codes. I spoke about this in the last episode at length, but UTM codes are a piece of code that you put at the end of your URL, and it basically labels and it puts it into the URL at the top, and it'll tell which campaign it came from. You can use dynamic UTM codes if you're using ads, which will allow Facebook or Google to automatically put in the campaign or the keyword or just all kinds of cool data. I think UTM codes are really, really valuable because they let you then filter and compare traffic inside of Google Analytics. I think that's really important. For most veterinary hospitals, it's really difficult to get an exact return on investment because you're not selling something online. When I'm selling products for e-com clients or something online, let's say I'm selling a bag of dog food, I can track the click to the cart ad to the checkout and then the conversion. And then they spent $32. That click cost $1.21. What is our return on investment for that click? That's easy, right? When you have somebody who is searching for, vet with appointments available today, for example, and then somebody calls, you have a disconnect between online and offline. Once they call, they need to be followed up with, they need to come into the practice. And then what do they need? It's not a cookie cutter response, right? Maybe their puppy needs a bunch of shots, and maybe they need, a blood lab, maybe they need dental work, I don't know, right? It's going to be complicated. It's going to be different every single time. So you want to make sure that you are targeting the right traffic that's going to be giving kind of the general KPIs that you have and moving those in the right direction, right? You want to be sure that you're getting more new clients, that you're filling your schedule, and that everything is looking good. So if we are, again, kind of targeting the right keywords, if we're targeting the right content, if you're doing the right activities on social, you're going to be able to look at your Google Analytics or the dashboard that you might set up with Google Data Studio and see and make sure that everything is looking good in the right direction. And I think having a dashboard, by the way, is really important because it lets you just take a look without pulling reports. So you can get filtered dashboards using Google Data Studio, and that way, if you see that your client numbers are good in practice, that your marketing numbers and the KPIs that you've set up for yourself look good, that you're going to be good. You don't need to go through and do a deep dive. But let's say 1 week you just all of a sudden go into a nosedive with new client calls and you look at your marketing dashboards and all of a sudden your clicks are way down or your ads aren't showing, or there could be a million things that could be causing that, and that would give you that red flag to say, okay, we need to go do a deep dive now. Let's figure out what's going on. Trending in the wrong direction. And I think dashboards let you really do that. It's like, having your speed limit, in your car. You can look down and you see the important things. You don't necessarily see, all of the data that your car's computer is getting, but you just see the things that you need to be managing in general, right? And I think that's really what's important. So when it comes to marketing, we have, I think the best tools that we have are Google Analytics that we need to have installed on everybody's website. Number 2, we need to have Tag Manager installed. Number 3, create pages for each specific service that you want to be sending traffic to and measuring traffic. If you don't care, if you want everybody just going to your homepage, it's going to be hard to pull out any kind of useful data in there, right? You're going to have your organic, you're going to have your paid, you're going to have your social, it's all going to be together, and so it's going to be a little bit more difficult. The next thing that we think are absolutely important is UTM codes. And then after that, I think as much as possible, if you can do native conversion and you're sending traffic to lead forms or you're sending appointment requests inside of Facebook, when they start releasing these new features that I'm sure they're going to be releasing, because again, they can manage and optimize for campaign events that are happening inside of the apps. So you get good reporting and good tracking when you're using native conversion tools. So I think that's definitely something to think about. I'll probably create a podcast on native conversion tools because that is a whole nother topic that is definitely more in-depth. But I think that is definitely a good start. If you can just start there and then expand out from what it is that you want to be targeting, what you want to be tracking, you're going to be in really good shape and you're going to be light years ahead of your competition because almost nobody does this. It is definitely the work that you can set up once and it's going to continue to pay over time, but it just is a little bit in terms of complication and people kind of avoiding it. I don't think many people like to set up their Google Analytics, their Google Tag Manager, their tracking templates, their UTM codes and things like that. But if you can, I think you're going to be light years ahead. So if you have any questions on this, please don't hesitate to reach out. I know we kind of got deep into the sticks here, but if you have any questions, please let me know. We're going to be going much more in-depth into tracking and management of tracking in the 5-day challenge, right? Because we're going to be building a funnel, which is kind of what made me think of this, because it's an easy way to track and manage the effectiveness of your marketing. So if you have any questions, be sure to reach out. If you're interested, head on over to veterinarymarketingpodcast.com/challenge, and you can sign up for the 5-day challenge. But I'll see you soon, and have a great day, everybody.